The wind rolled across the plains like it had somewhere important to be. It bent the tall grass low and tugged at the hem of Mara Ellison's faded blue dress as she stood at the edge of Red Hollow, one hand gripping a worn carpet bag, the other holding tight to her youngest child. Red Hollow was the kind of place that remembered your failures longer than your kindness. Mara had given birth to 3 daughters in 5 years. In town, people spoke of it in hushed tones, as though she had chosen her fate. At church, women offered thin smiles. Men shook their heads beside their wagons. Her husband, Caleb, carried the disappointment loudest of all. A son meant legacy. A son meant strength. 3 daughters, in his mind, meant weakness that reflected back on him. This morning had begun with silence. No rooster seemed to crow, no kettle whistled, only the heavy scrape of Caleb's chair against the floor. "I can't keep raising girls," he muttered, staring at the wall instead of at her. Mara stood at the stove, baby Ruth balanced on her hip, stirring thin porridge. Sarah and Eliza sat close together at the table, their small hands folded tight. They had learned the weather of their father's moods. "You'll try again," Caleb said flatly. Mara's grip tightened on the spoon. "Children aren't ordered like supplies." The words slipped out before she could swallow them. The table shook when his fist struck it. Bowls rattled. Eliza gasped. Sarah moved without thinking, stepping between her parents with trembling courage. "Stop," Sarah whispered. That was the moment something inside Mara shifted, not fear, but clarity. She would not let her daughters grow up believing they were apologies. When Caleb told her to go find somewhere else to be useless, she did not argue. She packed slowly, a blanket stitched by her mother, a tin of hard biscuits, 2 extra dresses, the girls' shawls. Sarah carried the rag doll. Eliza carried hope in the form of a smooth river stone she swore was lucky. By the time Mara stepped into the street, whispers had already begun. The saloon doors creaked open, boots scraped boardwalk. She did not look back at the house. She looked forward, at open land she did not yet understand. That was when she heard the steady rhythm of hooves. The rider approached at an unhurried pace, dust rising around him. Tall in the saddle, coat worn from travel, hat brim shadowing his face. Folks called him the loner up north. His ranch sat miles beyond the river bend, closer to the mountains than to town. His name was Thomas Hale. He studied the scene without spectacle. His eyes passed over the bruise at Mara's cheek, the defiance in Sarah's stance, the uncertainty in Eliza's grip, the baby half asleep against her mother's shoulder. "They yours?" he asked gently. "Yes," Mara replied, lifting her chin. Behind her, Caleb's voice cut across the street. "She won't make it a mile." Thomas dismounted, boots landing firm in the dust. The air tightened. The Hale Ranch rested where the open plains began to give way to rolling foothills, the mountains rising blue and distant beyond them. The house was modest. Whitewashed boards, a wide porch, windows that caught the morning light. The barn leaned slightly west from years of stubborn wind, and the fencing bore the scars of long winters. It was not grand, it was not polished, but it stood firm. And it was quiet. The first nights, Mara barely slept. Every creak of timber made her tense. Every gust against the shutters felt like a warning. She waited for conditions to appear, rules unspoken, debts unmentioned. Kindness, in her experience, had always come with a price. But none came. Thomas gave them the 2 small bedrooms inside and moved his own things to a narrow cot near the hearth. He rose before dawn, as he always had, and worked until the sun climbed high. Yet he never demanded more than what was freely offered. Sarah followed him first, cautious but curious. He showed her how to curry a horse properly, how to speak low so the animal trusted her. Eliza learned to gather eggs without startling the hens, her laughter bright and surprised each time she found one still warm. Baby Ruth toddled after the barn cats, fearless in a way only the very young can be. Mara began in the kitchen garden. The soil had been neglected, but it was rich beneath the surface. She turned it over with steady hands, planting beans and carrots, feeling something inside herself soften with each seed pressed into earth. Work here did not feel like penance. It felt like building. One evening, as the sky burned gold and lavender, Mara found Thomas repairing a stretch of fence where the wood had split. "You didn't have to take us in," she said quietly. He hammered one last nail before answering. "Didn't feel like a burden." She waited. "My wife died 3 winters back," he said after a long pause. "Fever took her. Our boy followed not long after." His voice did not break, but it grew thinner. Town decided I'd failed them. Mara understood too well the weight of blame carried for things beyond control. "I left before I let it turn me hard," he added. The wind moved gently through the grass between them. "I don't need sons," Thomas said. "I need good people under my roof, that's all." Over the months, the ranch changed. Fences stood straighter. The garden bloomed green. Laughter drifted from the porch in the evenings. Mara's shoulders no longer curved inward. The girls ran freely across fields that did not judge them. And Thomas, who once filled his silence with nothing but work, began to sit a little longer at supper, listening, not out of obligation, but because he wanted to.